Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to a special review for the brand new Thin Lizzy Acoustic Sessions album. This is their first new album in 42 years. Came out on January 24th of 2025. I'm going to get into the whole thing and break it down and explain what it is about it that is new and how they were able to do this. So we'll do that in just a bit. But before we get started, if you are new to my channel and haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like. All those things do help support my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, if you turn on notifications, you'll never miss an episode and stay up to date on really cool things just like this with a review for the brand new Thin Lizzy Acoustic Sessions album. So let's break this thing down. Let's get into what it is about this and why I'm calling it the first new album in 42 years, which incidentally, the last album of new original material was Thunder and Lightning in 1983. And so while this one here is not new material, newly written in that sort of a sense, what it is though are acoustic versions of songs from the first three studio albums plus EP, single A and B sides, and they are done by the original lineup of the group. But let me get into explaining a little bit more about what that all is. So the three founding members of Thin Lizzy being Phil Lynott on bass and vocals, Eric Bell on guitar, and Brian Downey on drums. They're the ones that are on this. They're the ones that are doing this. And so obviously with Phil Lynott having passed away, we can't go in and get new Phil Lynott material, so to speak. But what they've done is they went back into the archive, the catalog, and kept Phil Lynott's bass and vocals and Brian Downey's drums, and then brought original guitar player Eric Bell in to record acoustic guitar, and they've created these new versions calling this album the Acoustic Sessions. So that's where I'm getting in with the fact that it's actually like having a brand new album because these did not exist before. And I sort of see this album here as what's been going on, sort of the craze that's been happening with the remix album, the alternate album. Bands have been doing that sort of stuff for a while, although it seems like it has really taken off in recent years. And I like the whole remix album approach to things where bands are going in, remixing classic albums, putting a new spin on it, a new fresh coat of paint, so to speak, and giving us fans a new way to hear things. And Lizzy did this twice last year with Jailbreak, 76, and also another 76 era album, Johnny the Fox. So both of these come out as 2024 remixes. Now, they were part of a box set called 1976, but no standalone issues of this on CD. But if you chose to pick them up on vinyl like this, you could get standalone copies of it. And so that's actually how I got a hold of it, because the 1976 box set sold out so quick, as most things that Thin Lizzy do sell out, especially if they're limited edition like that. In fact, those vinyl releases are long gone as well now. But the remixes that came out were so interesting and had so much more life to them, in my opinion, that it really kind of shone a light on those albums. And so a lot of bands are doing it. Whitesnake has been making a whole recent resurgence in their career doing it. Jethro Tull, Gentle Giant. Yes, lots of bands putting out the remix. And, so Thin Lizzy does that. But now, they're approaching it with this. And we're going to break this down, but I also want to talk about a couple other ways that bands have approached things and why it is that I think this is acceptable. Because a lot of people will look at this release and the way that they do it, the remixes, and think it's sacrilege. That's not what the original band had intended, etc., and discard it. And I don't think that you should be discarding this release. But another way to think about this is that bands have been doing the alternate album for a long time. So bands like T-Rex putting out an album like this, which is called Rabbit Fighter, but it's the alternate version of Slider. So it gets new album artwork, the track listing is different, and it's all alternate editions of the songs from Slider. So you get to hear the album in a new way. Even Led Zeppelin did it, right? Putting out their albums with bonus disc, and then you have the alternate artwork like that. And it's in the same sequence so that you can listen to the album in an alternate manner. The original, plus you have the alternate edition of the album itself. So bands have been doing that for a while. But what we have happening here is an alternate way to hear it, but also new. And so the songs that appear on this being from those first three albums, so the band itself forms in 69 and being signed to Decca Records in 1970 and records and releases their debut album in 1971, the self-titled release coming out. And they put out two additional releases, Shades from a Blue Orphanage and also Vagabonds of the Western World. And they do that from 71 to 73. So the material that is appearing on this release here comes from these first three albums, but it actually breaks down across 6 different releases. So beyond just being those albums, because back in the day, bands used to put out EPs, A-sides, B-sides, and what's kind of cool is they didn't just go for the straight big songs on here, they actually dug in deep. And you get off of the self-titled release from 71 on here, I'm going to run through the track listing now and where they come from. So from the self-titled, they pull the song Ire. That's in 71. Then there was the New Day EP from 71 also, which has Remembering Part 2 and Dublin. Next, they move on to Shades of a Blue Orphanage in 72, for which you get the title track from the album, Shades from a Blue Orphanage. And next we have the single A-side, Whiskey in the Jar in 72, that never made an official appearance on the album until after it had already come out, although it's been added on and tacked on to even albums like this one here, Vagabonds of the Western World from 73, for which 3 songs are pulled from off of here. Mama Nature Said, the song A Song for While I'm Away, and Slow Blues. And then we actually have one B-side that appears on here, Here I Go Again, and that came from The Rocker. And so those are the 9 songs that make this album up, and it clocks in around 43, 44 minutes, I believe, in length. So even though only 9 songs, we still get a full-length album worth of music that's on here. And so most of the songs that are selected from this had an underlying acoustic element to them already. They stripped away the other parts of it that maybe made it or embellished it into a more electric or band sounding song in order to remake these full acoustic versions. And some of the songs themselves, I think, work better than others. Certainly one of the ones that is the strongest that stands out on here is the acoustic counterpart to the original A-side, Whiskey in the Jar. I think the acoustic version off of this album actually is just as good. I don't know if it's better, but definitely just as good. Another one is the New Day EP song, Remembering Part 2. Both of those, I think, are absolutely interesting, stellar versions that appear on here. But some of the other songs that are on this in the new configurations are merely don't maintain the energy that's to the same level as their original performances, although that's not necessarily a negative thing, because what does happen is having all those songs on here performed in that similar acoustic style, which is what's great about having brought Eric Bell back in to record those new guitar parts, is we don't get a wide variety sounding recording. We get something that all sounds like it was done together at the same time. And to me, that's what helps make this actually feel like a standalone album and not some sort of compilation or something that was thrown together or, just of outtakes or anything of that nature. Now, as I mentioned, though, that they don't necessarily do some of the bigger songs that you might expect on here, although I think that it has more to do with how the songs were structured originally in their choice of why they chose certain songs, but one that I think was really missing from this that I would have loved to have heard an acoustic version of is the rocker off of Vagabonds of the Western World from '73. Unfortunately, I think that one is sorely missing. One of my absolute favorite songs, and a pretty big song in and of its own right that should have been on here, like Whiskey in the Jar, but it's not. Still very interesting release, I think, and as I said, goes overall very well. And I do think that it's very nice, but what would have made this release itself go across or come across a lot better is had they done it across the entire career of the band. Now, as I said, we had the first three original members and we had Eric Bell coming back in to do these songs. Obviously, he would not be doing that to later era stuff. And I suppose they could have brought in Scott Gorham to do stuff on the other ones. But you know what would be pretty nice is to make a part two to this where they bring in Eric Bell's replacement, Scott Gorham, who's still kicking around and does his own version of Thin Lizzy out there to make a part two of the songs he was a part of. But we kick off with this right here, at least. Hopefully it goes well so that we see more of this down the road. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the album itself. Let me show it to you guys. So first of all, I think we have some really cool art here. They easily could have gone for some archival photos or some in the studio shots or something, but instead they had very unique art created for it, almost like a comic book. In fact, there's more images to this that are shown in the original releases of this that have the idea that this is more like a comic itself, whereas the album only gets a couple images. And I thought we would have gotten more of that as part of this since it had been created. So a little bummed about that and the fact that we only get this cardboard gatefold. There's actually no booklet in here. And the CD itself is in this part of it here. No special sleeve or anything, but you can see that the CD itself recreates the image that's from the backside on it there. And you do get the songs themselves broken down here, but not really a lot of information on it. It doesn't tell you what albums it comes from. It does tell you who plays what on it, but it would have been nice for there to be an explanation of what was removed and more specifically what was added or not part of the original so that we could have a little bit better understanding of how this album was created. So I'm a little bit bummed in that aspect that of the creation of this, we don't get a much more historical breakdown of the era, the time, maybe some good memories about the songs, why they chose this song selection, or just anything of that. Also, the fact that there's only the 9 songs, as I said, it sits right around the 45-minute mark, so I know that that's okay, but I would have liked a few extra 11, 12 tracks, I think would have really rounded this out to be a bit better and have a bit more punch to it, more of a lasting impression. By the time I get to track 9, I'm still wanting more of this. And so maybe it's good that it doesn't get worn out in my mind, but at the same time, I always feel like it's ending a bit too early for me. All right, so bottom line on this release, definitely something unique and new as an experience for listeners and for the fan that has been wanting something new from Thin Lizzy for a very long time. I don't think this is necessarily a definitive type release. It's not going to replace any of the originals at all, but it is a new release, and more importantly, like the remix albums, that bands often do, I think it is something that is worthy of the Thin Lizzy catalog. And it's the type of thing that I think extends their legacy. The remix album is just a new way to hear something. But this in and of itself goes beyond what remix albums are. It's actually a new take on stuff done by the original members. So they don't bring in outside session people the way that when the posthumous releases from Jimi Hendrix were first done, they had people that were never involved in the band come in and do it. And that kind of stuff I don't like. When you have members that are still alive that can come in, that can do that sort of stuff, I am, embrace that and welcome to that. And that's exactly how they approach this here. So yes, I understand Phil Lynott is not around and able to be part of this, and who knows how he would feel about it. I tend to think he would be for this, but we still have his original content, Brian Downey's original content, and then Eric Bell comes in and embellishes it. So 3 original guys creating it and no outside people in that regard. And I think that this release is done very respectfully. It keeps in mind that original legacy. I think it only adds to the overall legacy, and it's just something fun for us Thin Lizzy fans, and also at the same time, something that younger generations can discover and hopefully introduce them to the killer band that is Thin Lizzy. And there you go. That is my review of the Acoustic Sessions. I hope you enjoyed this review here. Certainly let me know your thoughts if you've had a chance to check this out. If not, I guess go check it out right now, see what you think, and perhaps you'll want to pick up your own copy. All right, everyone, take care, have a good one, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.